Hello to everyone who is watching me. My name is Helena and this is my story, a story that unfolded in a seemingly quiet town in the interior of the United States, but that could very well have happened anywhere in Brazil or in the world, where love is confused with imprisonment. I ask that you stay until the end, subscribe to the channel and leave your comments, because each word of support is a balm for the wounds that are still healing. I have always believed in love. A love that overcomes everything, that forgives, that understands, that builds. I grew up with the idea that love was the most powerful force in the universe, capable of moving mountains and healing the greatest pains. When I met Rodrigo, he seemed like the materialization of all my dreams. He had a captivating smile, a deep look that promised eternity, and a way of making me feel like the most special woman in the world. He was charming, intelligent, and spoke about the future with a passion that completely enveloped me. Our first months were a whirlwind of happiness. Candlelit dinners, long conversations about our plans, weekend trips that seemed like something out of a romantic movie. I was floating, completely surrendered to that overwhelming feeling. It was on a starry night on the shore of a lake we loved so much that he proposed. The ring, a classic solitaire with a brilliant diamond, sparkled under the moonlight. I said yes, with my heart overflowing with joy and the certainty that I was making the best decision of my life. That ring for me was the symbol of our union, of our promise of eternal love, of a future built side by side. I wore it with pride, showing it to everyone, certain that it represented security, happiness, and the fulfillment of a dream. The first signs began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Small jealousies, initially disguised as excessive care. Where did you go? Who were you talking to? Why did it take you so long to answer? In my naivety, I saw this as proof of love, that he cared deeply about me. Over time, the questions became more insistent, the demands more frequent. He began to criticize my clothes, my friendships, my work. That blouse is too short. Why do you still talk to that friend of yours? Your boss is paying too much attention to you, don't you think? I tried to justify myself, to explain, but my words seemed to dissolve into thin air, in the face of a gaze that became increasingly controlling. I remember one time at a friend's birthday party, he was visibly irritated because I had danced with her cousin. The argument started right there in the middle of the party. He pulled me by the arm, his fingers squeezing my skin with a strength that surprised me. "Aren't you ashamed? Exposing yourself like that in front of everyone." I was embarrassed, but deep down, a little voice inside me tried to find a justification for his behavior. "He's just jealous, he loves me very much." That was the excuse I used to make to myself, to my friends, to my family, when the first signs of something wrong began to appear. Little by little, his control tightened. He began to monitor my social media, to demand the password to my cell phone. My time with my friends was reduced, under the pretext that we needed to spend more time as a couple. My clothes, which I had previously chosen freely, began to be vetoed by him. "That doesn't flatter you. Wear something more discreet." I saw myself shrinking, trying to fit into a mold that wasn't mine, just to avoid the arguments, the disapproving looks, the icy silence that followed his outbursts. The ring, once a symbol of love, began to weigh down my finger. The verbal attacks came before the physical ones, like an insidious preparation for what was to come. "You're useless. No one will ever want you but me. You're fat, ugly, stupid." Each word was a stab, destroying my self-esteem, undermining my confidence. I looked in the mirror and saw the distorted image he painted. Tears became a nightly routine and sleep a luxury I rarely achieved. I tried to pull away, to resist, but the emotional manipulation was so strong that I felt trapped, with no way out. He apologized, cried, promised to change, said that I was the love of his life, and I, with my eternal belief in love, believed him. The first time he physically attacked me, it was like the world had fallen at my feet. A silly argument about dinner, a pan left on the stove. He threw the plate at the wall and then came towards me. A slap in the face so hard that it made me fall. The shock, the pain, the blood running from the corner of my mouth. I was in shock. He immediately knelt down, cried, hugged me, and asked for forgiveness 1,000 times. "I don't know what came over me, Helena. Please forgive me. I'll never do that again." Stunned and broken, I ended up forgiving him. The excuse? The stress of work, the pressure. And the cycle repeated itself, each time more intense, each time more painful. The attacks became more frequent and violent. Pushes, hair-pulling, punches that left marks. I tried to hide them with makeup, long-sleeved clothes, and lame excuses to my friends and family. I fell. I hit the door. It was a clumsy thing to do. The lie became part of my routine, a form of armor to protect my secret, my shame. I felt trapped, cornered. The ring, once a symbol of love, now seemed like a weight, a chain that bound me to torment. The height of my pain and terror happened on a rainy night. The argument started for a trivial reason as always. I had forgotten to buy a specific item at the supermarket. He was visibly upset, and the anger in his eyes told me that something very serious was about to happen. He started yelling, cursing me, and I, trying to defend myself, tried to pull away. But he held me tightly, threw me against the wall. My head hit with a dull thud, and for a moment, everything went dark. When I regained consciousness, he was on top of me, his eyes bloodshot with fury. He suffocated me, squeezing my neck with both hands while I struggled desperately to breathe. I felt my lungs burn, my vision blurring. I saw death up close. In a flash of lucidity, my hand reached for something around me and found a flower pot. With the last bit of strength I had left, I hit him on the head. He staggered back, letting go of me. I coughed, gasped, my neck raw. At that moment, something snapped inside me. The fear, the pain, the humiliation, everything turned into a cold rage, an unshakable determination. I dragged myself out of that hell, my throat burning and my heart in pieces, but with a new, fierce urgency to live. As I ran barefoot through the rain, each drop on my face mixed with the tears, but also washed away the blindness that prevented me from seeing the truth. I was not useless, fat, ugly, or stupid. I was a woman who had been deceived and imprisoned by a predator. I arrived at my sister's house, soaked and shaking, my body aching and my soul in tatters. When she saw me in that state, she didn't ask questions, she just hugged me with a strength that made me collapse. I told her everything, the words coming out in sobs, while she listened to me with palpable pain in her eyes. She took me to the hospital, and the marks of the attack were documented. The doctor examined me, the nurses treated me with a kindness that made me cry even more. It was the first time that I allowed the truth about my life to come to light. The healing process was slow and painful, but each step was a step towards freedom. The first step was to report it. Telling my story to the police, reliving the moments of terror, but with the certainty that I was doing the right thing. I felt fear, a paralyzing fear of reprisals, but the image of the ring on my finger, now a symbol of pain and imprisonment, gave me the strength to carry on. It was on the day of the hearing that I finally felt ready to take the most significant step. The ring, that same ring that had once represented a dream, now burned my finger. It was a burden, a constant reminder of my suffering, my naivety, my near death. That morning, before going to court, I took it off. With trembling but steady hands, I placed it on the bedside table. It no longer represented love. It represented pain, control, violence. It was the symbol of a prison that I was finally freeing myself from. Emptying that shared closet, packing my few things, each object was a piece of a past that I was leaving behind. The clothes he forced me to wear went into the trash. The photos of the two of us I burned in a purification ritual. The house, once the scene of my torture, was now a place to be abandoned, a scene of a nightmare from which I was finally waking up. Moving to another city was a difficult decision, but a necessary one. I needed a fresh start, a place where I could breathe, find myself again, away from the shadows of the past. My sister and parents gave me their full support, and that was essential. They helped me find a small, cozy apartment and get a new job. I forced myself to go out, meet new people, and try to rebuild my social life. Therapy became my safe haven, the place where I could vent, cry, and begin to understand the patterns that led me to this situation. The nightmares were frequent. I relived the scene of the assault, the suffocation, the fear of death. I would wake up in a cold sweat with a tight throat, and it took me a while to realize that I was safe, that he wasn't there. Trusting other people, especially men, was something I needed to rebuild from scratch. I felt vulnerable, fragile, and often memories of the past paralyzed me. But little by little, therapy, the support of my family, and my own inner strength helped me take one step at a time. Over time, the pain gave way to an unexpected resilience. I began to rediscover myself. I began to practice hobbies that I had abandoned, to read books that inspired me, to connect with nature. I enrolled in self-defense classes, not only to learn how to protect myself physically, but to regain a sense of control over my own body and my life. Each punch and kick on the punching bag was a way of releasing pent-up anger, of transforming pain into strength. I decided that my story would not just be one of suffering but one of overcoming. I began to volunteer at shelters for women who had been victims of violence, sharing my experience, offering a friendly shoulder and advice. I saw in their eyes the same pain that I once felt, and this motivated me to help them find their own voice and their own strength. I became a voice for those who still couldn't speak, living proof that it is possible to leave an abusive relationship and start over. One day as I walked along the beach with the sun warming my face and the sea breeze ruffling my hair, I felt at peace. It wasn't a naive peace, but a peace that had been conquered, full of scars and lessons learned. I looked at the horizon and saw the future as a vast ocean of possibilities, no longer as a dark tunnel with no way out. The ring, the one that had once imprisoned me, was now just a distant memory. I had freed myself from it, but more importantly, I had freed myself from the belief that love needs to hurt to be true. Today I don't wear rings on my ring finger. But I carry with me the mark of a journey, of a transformation. The Helena who believed that love conquers all still exists, but she understands that true love does not imprison, does not harm, does not nullify. True love liberates, supports, and strengthens. I have learned that the greatest proof of love we can give is to ourselves. And this is my story, the story of how a woman was almost killed by the love she believed she had, but was reborn from the ashes, stronger, wiser, and freer than ever. And if you who are watching me are going through something similar, know that you are not alone. Ask for help. Seek support. And remember, your worth is not in your ability to endure pain, but in your courage to seek your freedom and happiness. My journey of rebirth did not end with that walk on the beach. On the contrary, it was just the prelude to a new phase, one in which I would allow myself to flourish, even though the scars of the past remained as a constant reminder of my strength. Each day, I made an effort to leave behind the echoes of cruel words and aggression, replacing them with affirmations of value and small daily victories. I started group therapy, something that at first gave me chills. Sharing the intimacy of my pain with other women I barely knew felt like torture. But little by little I realized the strength that emanated from that circle. Each story told was a mirror of my own, and each shared tear was a link of empathy. There I learned that vulnerability was not weakness, but rather the gateway to true connection and healing. Hearing other women's stories of overcoming gave me hope, and seeing the impact of my own experience on their lives gave me purpose. I discovered that pain, when shared and transformed, can become a powerful tool for empowerment. My passion for helping grew stronger. I was no longer content with being just a volunteer. I decided that I wanted to do more, that I wanted to dedicate my life to this cause. I began studying for a postgraduate degree in social psychology, focusing on domestic violence. It was an immense challenge, balancing work, studies, and the ongoing process of my own recovery. There were days when exhaustion consumed me and Rodrigo's voice echoed in my mind, trying to convince me that I was incapable. But I refused to give in. Each book I read, each class I attended, was a brick in the construction of my new self, a silent response to those who once tried to silence me. My parents, who always supported me unconditionally, were important pillars during this phase. My mother, with her silent strength, taught me about female resilience, and my father, with his affection and constant presence, showed me what true love and respect were. My sister, my accomplice in all my pain and joy, continued to be my safe haven, the first person I turned to in moments of doubt or fragility. They celebrated my small achievements and welcomed me in my moments of vulnerability, without judgment, only with love. Little by little my self-confidence returned, and with it my openness to new connections. I was still cautious, of course. The fear of reliving the past was a shadow that accompanied me, but it did not stop me from living. I met new people, made sincere friendships, and began to realize that the world was much bigger and more welcoming than the small and suffocating universe I had inhabited for so long. One day, at a conference on women's rights, I was invited to speak. The invitation took me by surprise and filled me with a mixture of fear and excitement. Going up on that stage and telling my story without filters, without the excuses I once used to hide the truth, was a giant step. That day, the voice that had once been silenced by fear echoed in an auditorium full of people. I spoke about the ring, about broken promises, about the pain of aggression, but also about the strength of overcoming, about the importance of asking for help and never giving up on yourself. At the end of the talk, I saw tears in the eyes of many people, and amid the applause I felt a deep sense of purpose. I was no longer just Helena, the victim. I was Helena, the survivor, the spokesperson, the inspiration. My professional life began to take off. With my postgraduate degree in hand and experience in shelters, I was hired to coordinate a new project to welcome and reintegrate women who had been victims of violence into society. It was my dream job, a place where I could apply all my knowledge and experience to make a difference in the lives of other women. I dove in head first, working with passion and dedication, and each woman I managed to help take the first step toward freedom was a personal victory for me. There were still moments of fragility, days when memories from the past came flooding back with overwhelming intensity. But I learned to deal with them, to recognize them as part of my story, but not as the entirety of my being. Therapy taught me to transform pain into learning, anger into action, and fear into courage. I allowed myself to feel, but I also allowed myself to move forward. One day, while organizing some old documents, I found a small jewelry box, and there it was. The ring. Not Rodrigo's engagement ring, but another one, a gift from my grandmother that I had forgotten about years ago. It was a simple silver ring with a small turquoise stone. I picked it up, turned it between my fingers, and instead of pain, I felt a connection to my roots, to the strength of the women in my family who had also faced their own challenges. That ring, I placed it on the ring finger of my right hand. Not as a symbol of a promise of marriage, but as a reminder of my own resilience, of my ability to be reborn, to love again, but in a healthy and full way. Today my life is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. I have learned to love again, to trust again, but with wisdom and discernment. I have become the woman I always wanted to be, strong, independent, compassionate, and full of life. There was no fairy tale ending where a Prince Charming appeared to save me. My salvation came from within me, from my own courage to say, enough, and to fight for my freedom. My final message is for you who are watching me. If you identified with any part of my story, if you are living in a relationship where love is confused with pain, know that you are not alone. Seek help. There is a support network ready to welcome you. You deserve to live without fear, without pain, without the oppression of those who imprison you. The ring can be a symbol of promise, but it can also be a chain. And the freedom to take it off, to free yourself, is the first step to a real life. Don't wait until you reach your limit. Don't wait until the pain becomes unbearable. Your life matters, and you deserve to be happy.